if you have been doing all of the right things, eating less, moving more, but your body is still not responding in the way it used to, this episode is for you. Midlife weight gain, it's not a problem of motivation. It's often hormonal and a metabolism problem.
When I was 38, I started to lose my health. I was exhausted, gaining weight out of control. And then my labs were normal. You know, you're not feeling right. Do not buy into the story of you're getting older or you need to live like this for the rest of your life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Healthy Rebels Speaking Out, where we call out all the outdated advice that is keeping people stuck. So, if you have been doing all of the right things, eating less, moving more, maybe cutting carbs, but your body is still not responding in the way it used to, this episode is for you because midlife weight gain, it's not a problem of motivation. It's often hormonal and a metabolism problem. And today I am joined by Dr. Hilda Maldonado, a board certified medical doctor in anti-aging and regenerative medicine with 30 plus years of clinical experience helping women over 40 navigate hormonal and metabolic transitions. She is the creator of the Reset, Restore, Reclaim method, founder of the 12-week metabolic reset program, and author of The Truth About Thyroid. Well, welcome, Dr. Hilda.
So excited to be here with you today, Bunny. Super happy to join the Healthy Rebels. Love that title.
Wonderful. Well, just to get started here, what made you focus on women over 40 with metabolic and hormonal transitions?
So honestly, Bonnie, it was personal. The reason I ended up focusing on women over 40 is because when I was 38, I started to lose my health. I was exhausted, gaining weight out of control, having brain fog. I was feeling achy. And then my labs were normal, completely normal. I couldn't get answers from the conventional system. And even a well meaning physician offered to prescribe me antidepressants. And I knew I did not have a deficiency of antidepressants. So I realized if this is happening to me and I'm a physician that was already involved in the functional medicine community, what is happening to the woman out there? So that led me through a series of changes and my own path of physician heal thyself. Parallel to that, I ended up stepping outside the insurance model. I started looking at root causes from the perspective of hormonal and metabolic imbalances. And it became my life's passion. It has become my life's work. And it's what I have done for a long time, more than I want to admit now.
Well, I think that's wonderful. But what is the one thing that you wish every woman could understand about menopause and perimenopause?
Yes. Well, there is one such an important thing that I wish that every woman understood, and is that perimenopause and menopause are not a cookie cutter path. Perimenopause can start up to 10 years before menopause, and every woman enters perimenopause at a different state personally, physiologically, and metabolically. So everybody has a different experience when it comes to their own perimenopause path. And then the other part of this is that a lot of women, even though they're not feeling well, they continue to be told to wait 1 year until they stop their period. So they fit the definition of menopause. But the reality of the situation is that when you wait that year until you're 1 year without cycles, you're wasting a big window of opportunity. And I always feel like that's a very important time where women can start working on their imbalances. Another thing that I think is important is when we're talking about perimenopause and menopause is to understand that during perimenopause, the hormone that declines is progesterone. And then it is not until menopause that estrogen is the one that surfaces out as the main character of deficiency.
Yes. And why is progesterone so important? And what are the symptoms that some of these women may be experiencing that they just think it's from their, very stressful time of life, maybe raising a family, working full time? And how could this low menopause, I mean, not, I mean, low progesterone be impacting them?
The low progesterone can start impacting them by impacting their sleep. They may start realizing that they don't get a good night's sleep. Of course, that could also be from stress hormones, but the other part of it is that you can start experiencing mood swings. You can start feeling like you're a little bit more anxious than you normally are. Some women actually experience constipation that they didn't have before, and
PMS, right?
pardon me?
PMS symptoms as well.
PMS symptoms, the typical PMS, yes. Water retention, increase in cramps that they did not experience before, breast tenderness, the tiredness and fatigue 10 days before the cycle. So those are all things that can be experienced during this progesterone decline.
So, at what age would you recommend someone to get a test then to think about this? Because, I mean, we can see now over the lifespan, we're exposed to so many environmental estrogens, right? We can't help it that people are getting their menstrual cycles earlier. So, I'm thinking, when should someone think perimenopause that they could start to get tested just to see, rule it out, see what's going on?
Yeah, in the old days, I would have said 35, but I really think it's starting to be more like 28 or 30 because
Wow.
of environmental toxins, like you're saying,
Yeah.
environmental estrogens. And when we say that is not that estrogen is bad for us, right? There is an estrogen dominant state during perimenopause. It's just that it is out of balance with the progesterone. And another thing, Bonnie, that's important is somebody is going to get their baseline hormones to understand that the time to check for progesterone is going to be day 19, 20, or 21 of their cycle. And that's a very important thing if you're going to be looking for progesterone. But more importantly, and we can talk more about this later, is I often recommend that people keep a calendar of their symptoms because that's how they're really going to see how their symptoms relate to their periods.
So we don't have to wait until our period is completely gone to feel okay.
No,
So
no,
that is great news. So
no.
now I want to talk about what gets people's attention, and I know this from my practice, and that is the shifting in body weight, belly fat, which can start like 40 years old. So, and the typical thing that a lot of women will do, oh, well, I should, back off on the calories that I'm consuming and of course go to the gym and work out more. I mean, that's the typical thing that everyone is told. But why might this not work anymore?
Honestly, this backfires on women even before 40. Is not just in midlife, in perimenopause and menopause. It's just that when we're younger, when we count calories and reduce calories and over exercise, our bodies compensate. But when we get to that perimenopausal menopausal phase, then it doesn't work anymore. Our bodies do not compensate. And eating less calories and over exercising becomes a stressor. I call that an internal stressor. So it backfires because now you have elevated cortisol levels, which are not going to help when it comes to your weight loss efforts. Also, when you are over exercising and you're under eating calories, you are going to, in essence, gain more weight because you're going to be gaining less muscle while you're actually trying to lose the weight. So it absolutely backfires. And when the hormones are shifting, like you were talking, and the progesterone drops, cortisol rises, thyroid conversion can slow down, and calorie restriction and excess cardio are not going to be the answer for that metabolic state.
So no more spin class? Is that what you're saying?
Uh, um, Let me tell you that for the spinners out there, they love their spinning. So I can't tell somebody that loves their spinning not to spin, but you may want to look at the time that you're spending, the time of the day when you're doing it too. And if you're somebody that fuels yourself properly and is eating plenty of protein and plenty of good macronutrients, maybe you can sustain the spinning just fine as long as your adrenals are healthy. But trust me, you cannot ask somebody that has adrenal fatigue or suboptimal adrenal function to do spinning because they're not going to be able to last 5 minutes.
Well, I mean, it sounds to me what you're suggesting, which I agree, is listening to your body. Like if you feel overly fatigued after your exertion, then you know it's too much. And I mean, to me, if I just would chime in here from my background, it's just looking at exercise and diet is through a very different lens, right? So we're looking to just stress, but just a little bit. We're not looking like we used to do back in the 80s when we used to count how many calories you burned from that class and all of that. Like never thinking about counting calories, thinking about the change you're making in the body and building muscle, not burning calories, right?
Yes. Yes, and some of the symptoms, what you were talking about, paying attention to your body, some women, if they overexercise in this phase of life, they may feel like they have to take a nap after they exercise. They may feel like they have flu-like symptoms. They may even get swollen glands as if they were getting sick. So those are very strong signs that you overstress your body and you have to listen.
Right. Like you should feel good, like you did something, not like you overexerted. So
Yes.
I think that's really, really good advice. And yeah, same. So tell me, how does okay, we have the sex hormones, which you touched on a little bit, like the progesterone and obviously estrogen, but then we have the thyroid. So how do these all kind of overlap? And what do you think people are missing in this and our metabolism and how this all overlaps impacting our metabolism?
Well, when it comes to perimenopause and menopause and thyroid, there is an important thing that I observe frequently, and is that a lot of women say, "Oh, I did not have a thyroid problem until I hit menopause, and that's when I was told that my thyroid was suboptimal." But the reality of the situation is that during this perimenopausal time, if you have high cortisol and you're under a lot of stress, you may not be converting to your active form of thyroid properly. There are different types of thyroid. There are free hormones, there are total hormones, there are more powerful thyroid hormones, which are called T3s. And so the conversion of that T4 to T3 is influenced by stress, by cortisol levels, by nutritional deficiencies, by certain prescription medications, including oral contraceptives. So somebody could be having a suboptimal thyroid function in their perimenopausal time, but it just can't be picked because it's really happening at a cellular level. And when they finally go into menopause, then that's when it gets unmasked and that's when it becomes overt. There are other aspects to these. Most of the time, thyroid doesn't get tested properly, and we can talk about that if you want to.
Yeah,
Um,
like not just looking beyond, I'll start off with this, beyond just looking at TSH
yes.
and why, I mean, that's a fantastic marker, but why it may not tell you the entire picture.
It may not tell you the entire picture because let's just do a review of how thyroid works in a general way. Okay, so you have a chemical that talks to your pituitary and asks your pituitary to put out TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone, and that's what often gets tested. That TSH has to come to your thyroid, which sits in your neck area, is the shape of a butterfly, and then it asks your thyroid to make a thyroid hormone. The T4 that gets produced on your thyroid has to convert to the more active T3. And we do have receptors, but for both T4 and T3 at a cellular level. It's just that that T3 is the more active form of thyroid. Most of that conversion happens on peripheral tissues like the liver, the gastrointestinal tract, and there's something that's important there, like gut health has a lot to do with that, right? That's why we have to have good gut health, but also that conversion needs to have specific nutrients working, like B vitamins, iron levels, zinc, selenium, iodine. And then that conversion also gets blocked by stress, which is high cortisol levels. And it also gets blocked by taking oral estrogen. So when women are taking oral contraceptives, which is common for a lot of women in the perimenopausal time, they may be actually increasing what's called thyroid binding globulin. And that thyroid binding globulin is going to take that active thyroid and is going to make it unavailable to the cells. So don't get too complicated on this. Just understand that thyroid does not act on itself. It's not a solo player. It needs the environment, the terrain, the nutrition, the gut health, the not being exposed to chemicals. It needs all the other things to be working so it also works properly.
But also, just to summarize, it is critically important for both your liver and for your gut to be functioning properly, because this is where we convert the T4 that's produced by the thyroid and convert it into the active form T3, which is what we all want to feel good and keep our metabolism working. But you mentioned something very interesting, because most people, and I listened as well, didn't think anything of it, the synthetic, birth control pill. And it is crazy how that has been around forever with no question mark at all. But yet, when we wanted to do the bioidentical, there was major issues going on. But yet, we're giving these women estrogen from the time they're like 15 years old, synthetic. I would love for you to comment on that story.
Yeah, and it's not just the synthetic estrogen, is that the oral contraceptives have progestins, and
Right.
progestins are not the same as progesterone. So the whole entire situation doesn't make sense. Now, I do understand that women have the right to manage their contraception, and that is the one thing that gets offered to women since they go to college. So I do understand that that's important, but we have to be paying attention. And when it comes to the testing, if you want to look at your thyroid and you want to know if you're properly converting, then that's when on the testing, and I have those recommendations in my book, and I have them in different other sources that I have written out, where you want to make sure that you have your TSH tested, your free T3, free T4, your anti-thyroid antibodies, TPO, and in some cases, people even need to have something that's called a reverse T3 tested as well, because there is something that's called reverse T3 that can block the function of the T3. So those are things you can look out outside the traditional TSH, because you can have a normal TSH but not be converting properly your T4 to T3, and that is information.
Yeah, so what about women who go to their conventional practitioner and they're told, I mean, your labs are fine. but they know that they're not feeling right. We're intuitive. We know we feel like crap. So what would be your advice to these women?
Well, given the fact that I live that on my own flesh, this is very important to me that for women to know that if I have a woman that tells me, listen, I was told my blood work was normal, but I feel awful, I'm going to say, stop right there. This is super important because normal does not mean optimal when it comes to blood work. In addition, being told that all your tests were normal does not mean that all your markers were tested. So you have to listen to yourself. If you don't feel well, but you're told that your tests are normal, then it's important to stop and find answers maybe somewhere else, but find them. Also, be aware that lab ranges are statistical averages. So they are not measurements of optimum health. They're not measurements of how efficiently your cells are functioning. So if you feel awful, but your labs are normal, I would listen to the body before I listen to the labs and realize that it's not because you're getting older, you're aging, it's not because you need to live like that for the rest of your life. It's none of that. And respectfully, if you're going to your doctor over and over again and you're being told that everything is normal, but you know you're not feeling right, maybe you need to fire that doctor. That's that.
Well, because maybe they just don't know the right place to look.
They
How,
don't. And
how,
it's not their fault either. It's not part of the conventional system. The conventional system has been created to look for disease. If you do not meet criteria for a disease, and you cannot have a code attached to your issues, then you're told everything is okay. And it's not the doctor's fault either. So let's not make them wrong. It's just
it's just how they're trained, basically. I
it
mean, because it's the whole let's wait and see, which actually is code for we don't have a diagnosis to treat you yet. But which brings me to the next point is what do you think is quietly going on underneath the surface that shows up at these crazy, maybe having cravings, fatigue in the afternoon, and of course, that, terrible belly fat that brings people running to doctors all the time.
Yes. So it is so true. Most women actually they look to get help because they're having difficulty with belly fat and they're having difficulty losing weight.
Mhm.
And even though that's the thing that's the most important to them, there's all these underlying potential metabolic imbalances that need to be addressed. But we cannot ignore the fact that it is very frustrating for so many women that they're doing the best that they can. They're doing all the right things and they're still dealing with the belly fat. And to answer your question, when it comes to the sugar cravings, if you're having blood sugar spikes, your sugar goes up and down because maybe you ate refined carbohydrates. What's going to happen is that you're going to be increasing insulin production after you eat that. And if you don't have all the ingredients to put that sugar inside the cells to be used for energy, what's going to happen is that it's going to get stored in fat. So you can continue to go through these ups and downs. And something that I will say that I have observed, even though adrenal fatigue is not something that gets accepted on the conventional system, if your adrenals are off, you're going to have higher tendency for sugar cravings and for your sugars to be going up and down. So this is usually associated with fatigue, irritability, brain fog, because the brain needs energy. And if you cannot process energy properly, you're going to not be, feeling well. And your question, how does this relate to the belly fat? Is the body continues to store the sugar because it cannot use it efficiently. Now, let's also be clear about the fact that if you wake up in the morning and you eat sugar, you're doing a disservice to your system. So is it's not just all the sugar's fault, right? Sometimes it's the things that we need to do that we're not doing. And it's important to know that we need to
Totally.
be eating the right amount of protein so then we're not craving the sugar. But most of these women, Bonni, and I know that you've dealt with this in your practice, sadly enough, they go to the doctor and they're told, well, just stop eating sugar. That's all you have to do. Stop. Well, it's not that easy. Okay, sugar is more addictive than heroin. And just to think like I gotta stop eating sugar is going to make you want to eat more sugar. So we gotta take a backdoor approach and start fueling the body properly, start eating the protein and
What do you
let the
recommend
sugar
for
cravings
protein?
calm down. Yes.
So, what do you recommend for breakfast?
Well, for me, I can just tell you about me. And I know not everybody can do this. Fortunately, I don't have any egg sensitivity. So I'm a big egg person. I love, I love eating 2 to 3 eggs in the morning. And I would often, I don't have a dairy sensitivity. So in that sense, I'm very blessed. I also like to eat cottage cheese. I know. A lot of people are going to hear these, are going to say, oh no, don't be eating dairy. But it doesn't affect me negatively. And I'm an egg person. What about you?
Well, yeah, I definitely eat the protein between like supplements, collagen, amino acids, beef sticks. But yes, I get and eggs. I do too on the weekend. But to
Yes.
me, it's the biggest thing, and this is the biggest change I'm going to say I make with everyone that comes in is that first meal. Because we have to remember you haven't eaten in like 12 hours, and what you eat at breakfast is going to impact those cravings, blood sugar. So you're much better off focusing on the stuff that we want to push in versus the stuff that I mean, people know, sticky buns is really not the best idea, right? But but what we really want to focus on is right the things that we want people to get in and not being afraid of the eggs and the cholesterol and the meat and all of that. Like this is
Oh,
superfood. This is what we've eaten for a millennia.
yes. Oh, yes. And I my breakfast, if I don't eat 25 to 30 grams of protein with breakfast, I'm not good for the day. I have to start my day that way to have energy. There was a time, by the way, that what I used to do to get my protein was I used to have leftover dinner for breakfast. And that used to be I sometimes used to eat salmon for breakfast.
Well, I think that's perfect. We've just been socialized to do something sweet. Every time I do a seminar, I have to tell you, I have to make a moment of silence for my donut because growing up in Boston, that like crollers, that was like the thing, and bagels.
Well, it is usually donut and coffee. It's not just a donut. It's donut and coffee. So get sugar up, get cortisol up. And I love coffee, but I will eat my protein first and then have my coffee.
Yes, that is much better. So to me, that would be the first thing. So just thinking about the changes that happen to people as they get, even by the age of 30, do you know that they can lose 3 to 8% of their muscle in a single decade, right? And then as we get into menopause, that lean mass can drop by 5% every year. So how does this affect people's metabolism, hormones, and all of that?
It is huge. It is huge because think about muscle as your metabolic insurance. So the other part of muscle is that as we become older, when you see people that are frail and they're older, they've gone through a process that's called sarcopenia, which is accelerated muscle loss. And muscle loss promotes aging. That is why when we were talking earlier about the over exercising and the caloric restriction and dieting and not fueling yourself properly, it is terrible when it comes to muscle. And then muscle also is what's going to help you with insulin sensitivity, which is what gets the fuel inside the cells to be used for energy. So not, and then you can add to that that muscle sends signals to the brain so your brain works better. So muscle is extremely important and naturally will have a tendency to lose, but our job is to preserve and build as much muscle as possible.
Well, I think, I would like you to address what's going on now. A lot of people who just are really focused on that number on the scale, and they're looking towards these medications, all of the very popular GLP-1 peptides out there to help them lose weight. So I would just love you to chime in on that at the moment.
Sure. Well, from my perspective, and I know there's a lot of people that are big fans of GLP-1s, but from my perspective, the biggest problem that I see happening is that people are relying on the GLP-1s, and because they will have a strong appetite suppression as they're taking those medications, they're not eating properly. They're going all day without eating. They're not eating protein. You see it in their faces. They look, some of these people, woman and man, both look 10 years older. You see it in, they look skinny, but I call those skinny fat when you lose the weight, but then you don't build your muscle. And not to mention the side effects that are being reported with the GLP-1s. So I think like what we're going to learn from this tendency that so many people have been relying on them is that we have to go back to the basics, that you still have to go back to paying attention to what you're doing with your hand to mouth, that you still have to go back to your resistance exercise. There's not a quick fix. There's not an easy path out.
Yeah,
uh,
you got to pay the piper.
yes.
Um, yeah, no, no, I agree. And I think, what you were talking about before, to me, the issues, it's not the drug specifically, but it enables people to go on these strict diets, just like any strict diet is going to make people lose hair, lose muscle, and all the other issues going on. And yes, it shows up on the skin.
Oh, yes.
I mean, just because you don't have an appetite, you still have to eat. Your body still is wanting those those things.
Yes. I also think that what we are going to learn over time is that there's issues with the dosing. I really think that those medications could have been a lot more efficient had they been done in lower doses that still had the beneficial effects when it came to inflammation without driving so much appetite suppression, because they are very effective. I've seen some people not be able to tolerate them too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Um, well, I guess even without this, we know again from the age of 30, as we just mentioned again, that people are start losing their muscle. And how hard is it for people to traditionally, trying to lose weight? Like I think they say 1 in 10 people are trying to lose weight, and I think about 20% end up successfully doing it.
Yeah. But I
And
really think, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Bonnie, but I really think that when it comes to this perimenopause and menopausal mindset shift that we're talking about in here, um,
yes,
I think that one of the mindset changes has to be to lose the diet culture. And that diet culture was ingrained, at least in our generation, was
yeah,
ingrained since we were teenagers. We have to close out our mind to that diet culture and open our mind to the fact that we have um, to think wellness at a cellular level, wellness at muscle mass level, and not be so obsessed with losing weight as much as being more obsessed with our body composition. Where are we when it comes to our percent fat, our percent muscle, how our hydration is in our body, right? And there are tools that can be used to measure that. I'm sure that you use those tools in your practice.
Yes, I have an in-body, and it is fantastic because people, and you can get at-home devices. There's lots of them out there, but yes, since I've been practicing the past 30 years, you realize that number on the scale, it's not doable for everyone, but every single person listening can absolutely gain muscle and lose fat, and it's a much more rewarding goal to go after, because it leads to something that I want you to touch on, which is metabolic health, and what does that really mean when you're
Well,
metabolically healthy, and what would that mean? Why
I'll,
is
I'll
it important?
I'll give you my definition because a lot of metabolic health is definitions are associated with prediabetes and insulin resistance. To me, it's the whole picture. It's looking at all the hormones as a whole. Actually, I do love using this Rubik's Cube because
Yeah.
I find it as a great visual for here. You don't just try to solve one side. Look, I have one side solving there, but just solving one side is not going to solve all the other sides. So instead of instead of start looking at, you know, thyroid by itself or menopause by itself or pre-diabetes and weight by itself, let's just start connecting the dots properly and get the Rubik's Cube completely solved so we can have enjoy metabolic health like we were intended to. Because the problem really truly is that people go after one thing, they fix one thing, but they don't fix the other ones. For example, if you go after the estrogen replacement and you have a lot of inflammation in your body, you're not going to receive that estrogen properly. If you go after estrogen replacement and you have you lack gut health, you're not going to be able to detoxify properly. If you go after estrogen replacement but you don't have thyroid supported, is not going to work. If you go after thyroid replacement, but your adrenals are off, is not going to work either. And the thing, Bonnie, is the order in which these gets put together for each person varies.
I love this, what you just said. That was absolutely fantastic. So if a woman is thinking, oh, I'm like perimenopause, where would you start with them? Like what is your protocol?
If you're in perimenopause, the biggest thing you can do for yourself is
Mhm.
on your phone or in a real calendar, write down a calendar of your periods and your symptoms so you can get in touch with what's really happening. Because when you're in perimenopause, the other part, Bonnie, is that the symptoms can change every other month, literally, because you may be ovulating from one of your ovaries, but the other one is not ovulating. So you're
Mhm.
really severely progesterone deficient every other month. You may be snapping at your children every other month. This could save marriages if you really take the time to study yourself before you even try to get external help. That's going to be one of the best things you can do.
Okay, but then you mentioned some other things like looking at gut health, because the way I think about perimenopause and going into menopause, it's like all of a sudden we have this light that is shine on all of these issues that people may have had, right? But now they're no longer being protected by estrogen, and so everything like comes out. So you want to be careful, like you said, before you get started with anything to make sure those organs are starting properly, right?
I like to walk people through a path. If you ask me personally, okay, how I like to address this. First, I want to make sure that the person has a mindset reset and they are positive that they want to get well, because that's the first question. Do you truly want to get well? Not, trust me, not everybody wants to truly get well.
Well,
There
they
may
want
be
to do the
secondary.
stuff.
What was that?
I said they want to take the pill or whatever and get the end result, but not necessarily do all the stuff that's involved.
Right. So, do you really want to get well? Do you really want to achieve your goals? Do you even know what your top three health goals are? And are you willing to step outside the conventional system if you need to get the help that you need? That's like step one. And then after that is really looking at all these different areas that we're talking about here. Look at the person's state in terms of gastrointestinal health, assess nutritional status, look at the different hormones and see what the areas of attention are going to be when it comes to their metabolic markers. Assess where they may be when it comes to their neurotransmitter balance, and also where they are in their ability to exercise. Because you cannot get a person, for example, that's fatigued, that cannot get out of bed in the mornings, and you cannot take that person and say, oh, by the way, you need to build muscle and you need to exercise, because they're going to look at you cross-eyed. They can't. They cannot even walk 5 minutes without getting flu-like symptoms. And I know because I was there once. So how do you address this is finding the individual needs and putting them in the right order for that person. Does
So,
that make sense?
yes. So, is this, if not, elaborate on your reset, restore, reclaim program, of which there is going to be a free guide in the resources?
Yeah, so I literally in so many other words, just I went through it. But the reset, think about it like the moment you decide that what you've been doing is not working, right? Because insanity is keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. It's awareness, it's foundational support, it's starting to reduce inflammation, getting clear of what's going on. And then when we move into the restore, then we go deeper. That's when the sequencing matters, the order in which things get done matters. That's where nutrients get addressed, hormones, thyroid, metabolic repair, movement order. And then, of course, the reclaim part is when your body becomes your friend again. And some of my clients have said that my body became my friend because energy returns, confidence returns, strength returns, and you finally feel like you regain yourself. So this is you'll hear me say this over and over again, is the order in which you do things can make or break your results. And it's a process that, like I said, was born out of my own physician heal thyself journey. And the order in which you do things can make or break your results. So there's your reset, restore, reclaim in a nutshell.
It's fantastic. I think so many people are functioning like suboptimally and they don't realize it until they feel better, which is right. Do you notice that with clients that, oh yeah, because I always review like, the energy level in the afternoon, this and that, like, yeah, I don't take that nap anymore. You're right. Okay, this is a change. Like stuff like that. Like people don't realize that they were functioning at this other level until they all of a sudden like woke up and feel better. And it's amazing.
A
So
100%. 100%. That happens with energy. Like, hey, I went on a vacation and I didn't have to take naps in the afternoon. Or, oh, it's been 3 weeks since I had sugar cravings. I didn't even realize it. Or like, oh my goodness, I slept 3 nights in a row and I woke up feeling so energetic. Or how about, no, I haven't lost weight, but oh yeah, by the way, my jeans are sort of loose. But no, I didn't lose weight. But yeah, I had to get a different size on my jeans. And this is part of the entire educational process, that all of those are gains, all of those are wins. And the more wins that we can put into a person's side, the better that they're going to be doing. But yeah, I find that a lot, the same thing. Or how about like, oh, I'm not bloated after meals anymore.
Yeah, no, that's a huge one. I don't know, it seems like everyone is bloated. And I mean, to me, obviously we have a lot of digestive dysfunction going on and maybe not enough acid because people are stressed out. Right? What do you think?
Uh, well, yeah, definitely. It's just
So
it's so we can go. And on the digestion, I have to say something because this is something that is not everybody loves hearing this, but I must say this. When in perimenopause and menopause, there's a lot of women that start self-medicating with alcohol. Their alcohol intake increases. And part of it is because they're looking for that good night's sleep. And what ends up happening with that is the alcohol itself does not help with blood sugar regulation. The alcohol does not help with the sleep. They actually sleep worse. And it can increase gastrointestinal permeability. So while we're in these gut health and bloating subjects, sometimes even the fact that you may be increasing your alcohol intake. So that's another thing to look in your calendar. It's like, how many drinks are you really having a week?
yeah, I think that's a huge one, and people don't realize it. And especially for those of us who are past menopause and how dangerous it can be for estrogen,
Mm-hmm.
right? Drinking alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you were going to tell people listening right now uh, one change that they might consider making that might have the biggest impact, what would that be?
I would say to become your best advocate and truly listen to your body and do not buy into the story of you're getting older or you need to live like this for the rest of your life. I think that's the biggest thing that I have to tell somebody because when you get that internalized, the other things are mechanical things. We can work with all of that.
Right.
They're
So,
tactical things.
so realistically, when you're working with someone and we're not doing any sort of extreme dieting, because we already discussed how dangerous that is, what do you look for this, for the progress that is something that they're going to be able to sustain and live with? What does it look like?
I think that again, the sustainability comes with self-responsibility in my world. Sustainability comes with self-responsibility and also comes with being able to have been provided the tools that are going to help you remain successful, the tools and the education. And when we're talking about sustaining, I'm talking about sustaining decade after decade after decade. Some of my successful clients are those that train for their 50s while they were in their 40s, train for their 60s while they were in their 50s. It's really taking, we've talked about a lot of things in here, but it's really taking everything that we've talked about, integrating it and being able to hold somebody's hand to guide them through a process while they become educated and empowered. They understand their body, how their body works, and now they have the tools to apply to themselves for the rest of their life. So to me, that's the most important thing. Not just tell somebody do this and do that and do that. It's just also provide them with the tools. And another thing, when you ask me what would you tell women, is to release shame. So many women have been trying so hard. They've
Mm.
just been doing all the right things and and things are not working, but it's not your fault. Just release the guilt, release the shame, and know that it is possible at any age to achieve your health goals. That's my forever optimistical view when it comes to a woman's body.
Oh, yeah. And I think the 1980s and 90s has done us the biggest disservice from all of the diet recommendations, the exercise recommendations. And then, yes, there is like this inherent pressure, I think, of women in social media to kind of keep up with the appearance and, how we give value. Where like men talk about their stomachs hanging out as almost like a badge of honor, a lot of them, versus women are like traumatized by it, right? It,
Yeah, but there was also over 2 decades of a double standard that happened to women. For over 2 decades, women were told that estrogen was bad for them. So there is so many women that missed that opportunity. In the meantime, men were being told that it was okay for them to take testosterone. So there's a lot of repair
and the little blue pill, let's not forget that.
and the little blue pill, let's not forget that.
Right. If it was opposite, there would have been a pink pill. I'm pretty sure of that. But yes, if you want to speak to what has changed and bioidentical hormones and estrogen and the FDA, because this was a huge year for hormones. This is a huge, huge year.
Huge year. So one of the things that happened was that in the later part of 2025, the FDA officially lifted the black box warning that they had put on estrogen, which for 23 years I knew it was incorrect, but nonetheless it was there. And so many women were not given the option of estrogen. Still to this date, so many women are not being given the option of estrogen. And so basically, what the warning said was that if you take estrogen, you're going to increase your risk for cardiovascular disease, and there's all these horrible things that are going to happen to you. And that has been lifted. And now the data, when it comes to benefits for cardiovascular disease, are being talked about, benefits for brain health are being talked about,
Oh,
benefits for the immune system are being talked about, benefits for your pelvic floor health are being talked about, because actually, let's just face it, so many women as they get older, they have so many problems when it comes to incontinence or sexual problems, right? The dryness that women live with, the decreased sex drive, all those things, women were not talking about them because they were not being given the answers. And I'm not saying that now because the label has been lifted, it means that everybody should go on estrogen. But what I'm saying is that every woman has the opportunity of being offered an educated option for themselves, and then they can choose. So at least the conversation is open. But for
where can they get good
3 years,
advice, though? Where would they go to get good advice? Because it appears this menopause and bioidentical hormones is not taught in medical school. Am I correct?
I yeah, no, it's not. It's not. Thyroid, suboptimal adrenal, suboptimal thyroid, perimenopause, menopause. I would start by again getting educated. One of the gifts that I have for your audience is the guide that I wrote, and it even tells you questions that you can ask your physician when it comes to estrogen. It talks about the distinctions between bioidentical estrogen versus synthetic estrogen. It talks about the difference between transdermal and oral estrogen, big differences there. Oral estrogen does carry potential side effects when it comes to increased inflammation, blood clots, and cardiovascular disease.
That's
And
the oral, right?
what was that?
You said the oral estrogen.
Oral. Yeah, and one of the
They
things,
still give it. I have a client in her 80s. She still is getting Premarin.
yeah, it is still being given. But not only that, Bonnie, I had seen some influencers on social media that because so many women went on the patch as the black box warning was lifted, a lot of pharmacies ran out of the patch. So there's these influencers going on social media telling people, hey, I couldn't get my patch, but my gynecologist gave me a prescription for oral estrogen. And I went to my compounded pharmacy and I got my oral estrogen. But my position, my personal position is that I would not take oral estrogen, even if it was bioidentical. And it's not because estrogen is bad for you. It's because when you take oral estrogen, it goes through the liver and it can increase inflammation. Plus, talking about the thyroid that we were just talking about, when you take oral estrogen, you increase something that's called thyroid binding globulin. It's not just the oral contraceptives, it's any estrogen. And if you increase thyroid binding globulin, now you're putting your thyroid in jail and non-available. Okay. So no reason to take oral estrogens when there is so many choices for transdermal. There are prescription choices for transdermal. There are compounding choices for transdermal. So no reason to take oral estrogens.
I'm with you. I'm covered. I put it all over everything because I have the skin. I have it now compounded in skincare. I don't know what you think about that, but why not? Well, we have receptors for estrogen all over our skin.
Everywhere, everywhere in our skin, in our brain, in our heart, in our heart.
Yes. This is huge. Well, this has been fantastic. So many little nuggets throughout our conversation, and it's been very enjoyable speaking with you. So hopefully we'll come back again when something big is in the news with the thyroid or estrogen or something like that. So do you have anything else that you want to share with us?
I would say again, if you are not feeling well, know that you do not have to feel that way. Look for answers. You just likely haven't had somebody that has been able to guide you. So take the time to read, track your symptoms, observe, become familiar with your body, become your best advocate, and know that there are smarter ways to handle things. And you can start by reading the guides that Bonni is going to have available. There is one that's going to be on the 5 metabolic mistakes that we can make after 40. There is another guide that's going to be on estrogen and the changes that have happened after the black box warning was removed. And I have the relaunch of the thyroid book that is going to be coming in May. And I'm happy to provide you with a link for a waiting list for those that want to be informed of when the book is available.
Well, I do. I'm going to be on the waiting list.
Awesome.
All right. Well, fantastic. And thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed this conversation so much. And yes, I would love to be back.